Hey there, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Fantasy for the Ages, the show where a father and son talk about fantasy, science fiction, and other nerdy things that we enjoy. Today, it's just Jim here, the father of this show, bringing you a quick take on books that I almost DNF'd and would have been most tragically wrong. If you enjoy what I talk about today, we sure hope you'll hit that like button down below, subscribe to our channel if you haven't done it yet, leave us some comments, we always respond, and look in the show notes for other ways you can connect with Zach and I, social media, our Discord server, come and join all the people over there chatting about books with us, or even our Patreon page. Thank you to those of you who are already Patreon supporters. We appreciate you. So, books here. Wow, I've got 4 specifically to bring to you today that I almost made a disastrous mistake on. Now, some of you may have way more books you've read that you did not finish, DNF'd. But I am a completionist. If you've been with us on this channel, you've heard me talk about that before. Once I start something, I really want to see it through. Even if I'm not liking it, I want to know for sure I don't like it. I want to know, does it change partway through? Is there a reason this book gets good if I keep going? And that really nudges me on to continue and see it through. Thank goodness for that tendency. Because the 4 books I'm here to talk to you about today, if I'd quit, if I'd given up like I nearly did, disaster. I would have missed out on so much. And if you've read these books, you understand. This is not going to spoil any of the books. So if you haven't read the 4 I'm sharing today, you're safe. I might mention a little bit of something or other, but it's not going to ruin the book for you. And if you have read them, you totally know what a disaster, what a cliff I almost went over that I avoided. But let's get to the books. What are they? The first one is the most recent of the books, We Break Immortals by Thomas Howard Riley. Book 1 of his Advent Lumina cycle, and that's the only book out so far. It's a big, grimdark fantasy book, and it's grimmy grimdark. There's some real darkness to it. I've got content on it elsewhere that you can find out about this book. But when I was starting to get into it, there was one particular character that was totally turning me off to the series. And it simply had to do with his attitude towards women and sex. And it was very harsh and immature. And he was really seeing women as just objects of pleasure that he didn't want to connect with. Heck, he didn't even want to see their faces. Better to not remember them that way. But he wanted plenty of sex. And it was just irking me. It was gross. And this was being built up as somewhat of a primary character, I was thinking. Which is true, actually. I kept going anyways. I was really being cheered on to read this book by others who had already read it, especially Spencer over at the Fantasy Files podcast. So I powered on. And then I figured out, as I kept going, what the author had done there. And I was pretty much supposed to feel the way I was about this character, but there were other things to be learned that would redeem my opinion of him in time. So, We Break Immortals is a fantastic book. If you pick it up, don't let that issue put you off. Hopefully it does put you off, because it's disturbing. This is not how we are supposed to think of or treat women, okay? Just saying. But don't let it put you off from reading the rest of the book. It all comes out in the end appropriately, more properly. I mean, it's still grimdark. There's still a lot of suckage, but the book's amazing. And some of the best magic, grimdark magic that I've found. It's a fun ride. Okay, my second book. I almost can't believe I almost DNF'd this, is the original Zombie Fallout book by Mark Tufo. I've got a lot of content here on our channel related to Mark Tufo and his books, and especially the Zombie Fallout books. There's a whole series of them, over 20 books, and I have loved them. They're so entertaining. But when I'm reading the first one and the opening scene, I got grossed out. but not by zombies. Okay, teeny spoiler. The main character, Mike Talbot, is a major dog guy. He's got this dog, Henry, an English bulldog, just loves the dog. But the dog poops. I mean, that's what dogs do. And these bulldogs, apparently the poop is bad. I mean, it smells bad. It's horrible. Okay, opening sequence. Mike walks out to the backyard because of something going on out there, and he steps in dog crap. And he's a bit of a cleanie, he has issues with getting dirty and stuff. He doesn't like that. Well, neither do I. So when he's experiencing that and he's like, oh, yuck, gross. And I'm like, oh, yeah, bad. And then he goes back into the house because zombies, and he doesn't have time to clean off. So now he's tracking dog crap all over the house, and it's just disgusting. But you got to move past that. So I was a little grossed out. I'm like, oh, do I really want to? But it's done in a humorous enough way that I'm like, no, I won't put this down. I'm totally grossed out, but I won't put it down. And I kept going, and thank goodness, because that book is so much fun. Zombie apocalypse, but fun. And the series goes on to be brilliant and has spin-off series, tie-in series, so much enjoyment in my reading experience because I did not stop because of dog poop in Zombie Fallout. Book 3 is probably my most popular book on the list, and many episodes ago I have mentioned this one. I'm talking about The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson, book 1 of the Stormlight Archive. This is Brandon's magnum opus. These huge books of the Stormlight Archive, 4 of which are out now. But when I tried to read The Way of Kings, book 1, I had already read most of the Cosmere that existed to that point. So I'm current on things, and I try to get into The Way of Kings. Now, I liked Brandon Sanderson's writing, found him first off because of finishing The Wheel of Time, but then Mistborn and other things. So I understood Sanderson. I didn't understand The Way of Kings. This style he started with for the book, I couldn't get into. I mean, first the prologue, where you have no context, you don't have a clue what's going on, and I am so lost. And that happens with fantasy stories, I know that. Okay, I'm no noob, but still, I felt really lost. And then it jumps to the actual story, and there's seemingly no connection to the prologue. And then the story he's telling is so slow to develop. We're meeting characters. He's doing world building, but where is the action? It was just so immensely slow. I was bored out of my mind. And about 25% into this book, I did DNF it. Now, not really. What happened is I just put it down. I set it aside and moved on to other things. I never made a decision of, this book is trash, I shall not read it anymore. Nope. So there was no official DNF. I just stopped reading. And then got busy with life and actually forgot that I hadn't finished the book. So when the next book in the series comes out, I bought it. But I was busy reading other things, didn't even pick that up. Then the third book comes out, and I buy that one because I always love reading Brandon Sanderson in these series, and I start reading Oathbringer, the third book, and I don't remember the pieces of the plot before, so I go back to the second book, Words of Radiance, and I don't remember this book at all. What the heck? So then I go back to the first book, and I realized what had happened, that I'd never gone back and finished The Way of Kings. So I restarted it, and still found it hard to plod through, but I pushed on because I got 2 more expensive books I've already bought waiting for me. So that was motivating. Pushed on. Was glad I did. That's a great book. You just got to get into it a bit. My son Zach says he did not have this problem at all, so it may just be me and my preferences with reading. But by the time you get to the last quarter of the book and the Sanderlanche gets going, whoa, I mean, it's such an epic conclusion. And then book 2 was hard to start again. Each of these books have been a little tough to get going, but they pick up faster as you go. And honestly, book 4, Rhythm of War, no, that one was just fun from start to finish. All right. Number 4, my final book to share with you today is Malice by John Gwynne, book 1 of The Faithful and the Fallen. I love The Faithful and the Fallen. 4-book series, all big chunky fantasy books, epic fantasy, great stuff. I've got more John Gwynne on my TBR to read because of these books. But I did these as audiobook, and Malice, it is so complex. There's so much world building going on that I had to start it 3 times. So I was this close to DNFing. Because I did the prologue of the first book, and I'm partway into the first chapter, something like that, and I realized I don't know what's going on. I can't retain all the information that he's dumping into my head. I'm lost already. So I restarted, and I did the whole prologue and the first few chapters, and again, gall darn it, I don't know what's going on. I can't remember the names of characters. I'm not making the connections I think Gwynne wants me to make, and therefore I'm not enjoying the story. So the stubborn German in me kicked in, and I started a 3rd time. I've never done that with a book. But this time I said, okay, no multitasking. I can't be doing chores. I have to focus. So I only did it while I was walking for exercise in the morning, where there's nothing else to really pay attention to, just walk and think, listening. And I made it. And it was brilliant. And I loved it. Now, I think it did help that I'd read the first portions a couple of times already, but the work was worth it. Malice and the 3 books that come after it are an amazing epic fantasy tale. And then it's good because another one of the series he's written is a sequel. You know, you would kind of need to have these before you could read the rest. But amazing. So glad I didn't give up, even though I had to really work hard to get into Malice. Those are my 4 that I could think of that, yeah, wow, I'm glad that I didn't DNF. I almost did. Which books are like that for you? I mean, I could list ones I have DNF'd. It's a short list, but I like to focus on the positive and not the negative. I could also list a few that I should have DNF'd and did not. Again, I'll leave that alone. But I want to know which books you almost put down and stepped away, but you pushed on through, and you're so glad you did. Let me know. Put them down in the comments or find us again on Discord or social media, and let's talk. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll talk to you next time.